The hall was larger than she had ever imagined. When she first stepped inside, she had to stop for a moment just to take it all in. The space felt open and endless. The ceiling rose high above her, so high it almost didn't feel real. Soft golden lights hung from above, spreading a warm glow across the room. The light touched everything gently, making the place feel calm but serious at the same time. The wooden floor shined under the lights. It was smooth and clean, polished so well that it reflected the glow from above. It looked like the kind of floor that had seen many important moments. Many performances, many people trying their best. Every small sound echoed, a shoe brushing against the floor, a chair moving slightly, a quiet cough from somewhere far away, even her own. Breathing felt louder than it should have been. She became aware of every step she took, every movement she made. It felt like the hall was listening. At the center of the hall sat the grand piano. It was black and glossy, shining under the lights like it was alive. The surface reflected the ceiling and the lamps above, almost like a mirror. It looked strong, serious, and important. The kind of piano people expected great things from. The kind of piano that didn't forgive careless hands. For a brief second, she wondered if she even belonged in the same room as it. It felt too grand, too perfect. Almost too important for someone like her. She stood near the entrance, holding her hands together, unsure what to do with them. Her fingers pressed into each other softly, a habit she had picked up long ago. The air inside the hall felt heavy, not in a bad way, but full. Full of waiting. Full of expectation. People were already seated. Some talked in low voices, leaning close to one another. Some laughed quietly, careful not to be too loud. Others flipped through papers or checked their phones, not paying much attention to anything yet. No one noticed her, and that was okay. She walked into the room slowly, careful not to draw attention to herself. Her steps were calm and steady. No one turned to look at her. No one whispered her name. No one pointed. No one smiled or waved. She blended into the background, just like she had done so many times before. She wasn't there to be seen. She was there because of something much deeper. She carried years of quiet effort with her. Years of trying and failing. Years of learning, improving, and starting again. None of that showed on the outside. You couldn't see it in her clothes or her face, but it was there. Heavy. Real. Resting quietly inside her. From the outside, there was nothing special about her. She wasn't dressed like a performer. There was no fancy outfit, no bright colors, no shining shoes. Nothing that said, "Look at me." Her clothes were simple and comfortable. Clothes she felt safe in. Clothes she had worn during many long practice hours. They felt like her. She didn't walk with loud confidence. Her steps didn't demand attention. They were calm, natural, and steady. She didn't expect applause. She didn't expect smiles. She didn't expect encouragement. She didn't expect anything at all. As she moved farther into the hall, some people slowly began to notice her. A few heads turned. Someone leaned toward the person next to them and whispered something under their breath. Another person frowned slightly, then looked back toward the piano. There was a small shift in the room. It was quiet, almost easy to miss, but it was there. Some people were confused. As it became clear that she was the one scheduled to play, a few exchanged looks. Not angry looks. Not kind ones either. Just unsure looks. Raised eyebrows. Slight head tilts. A thought passed silently through the room. Is she really the one? No one said it out loud. They didn't need to. The feeling was there, hanging in the air like an unspoken question. Maybe they expected someone else, someone older, someone louder, someone who looked like they belonged on a stage. She felt the weight of their eyes on her. Even when they tried not to stare, she could feel the quiet judgment. The curiosity mixed with doubt, but she didn't stop walking. What they didn't see were the early mornings. She had spent practicing when the world was still quiet, when the sun had barely risen and the day hadn't truly begun. She practiced on a small, old keyboard that had seen better days. Some keys were harder to press. Some sounded slightly off. She learned to work with it anyway. She adjusted her hands. She listened closely. She paid attention to every sound. She learned patience long before she learned skill. What they didn't see were the late nights, when everyone else had gone to sleep, nights when the room was dark and silent, nights when her fingers hurt and her back felt tired, but she played. One more time anyway, not because anyone told her to, not because she had to, but because she wanted to understand the music. She played the same parts again and again, stopping only to think, then starting over. Sometimes she felt frustrated. Sometimes she felt unsure. Sometimes she wondered if any of it mattered at all, but she always came back the next day. Music had become her quiet place when life felt too loud. The piano gave her silence. When her thoughts felt messy and confusing, the keys helped her slow them down. When words failed her, music spoke for her. The piano wasn't a stage to her. It was home. She had learned early that effort doesn't always bring praise. No one clapped for her practice. No one watched her improve. Most of her growth happened when no one was there to see it. Sometimes she wondered if anyone ever would. As she walked closer to the piano, the noise in the hall slowly began to fade. Conversation softened. Laughter stopped. Chairs stopped moving. Phones were lowered and forgotten, not because people were excited, but because they were curious, the kind of curiosity that waits to judge. The room didn't fall silent all at once. It happened slowly, like a breath being held without anyone noticing. One sound stopped, then another, until the hall felt still. She reached the piano bench. It was placed perfectly, centered and ready, facing the room. She touched it lightly, her fingers brushing the smooth surface. Then she adjusted it just a little. The soft scrape of wood against the floor sounded louder than it should have. She sat down for a moment. She did nothing. She rested her hands in her lap. Her shoulders slowly relaxed. She didn't look at the crowd. She didn't search for friendly faces. She didn't search for doubt either. She closed her eyes. She took one slow breath in, then another. The world felt smaller now, quieter, like everything outside. The piano no longer mattered. Like the hall, the people, and their thoughts had faded away. She placed her fingers gently on the keys. They felt cool beneath her. Touch. Familiar. Steady. She didn't start right away. There was a pause, not a nervous pause, not a fearful one. A focused pause, a pause filled with memory, with effort. With every early morning and late night that had led her here. With all the quiet moments no one else had seen, the room waited. No one spoke. No one moved. That single moment, just before the first note, held everything. And no one in that hall knew it yet. But that pause was about to change how they saw her. It was about to change how they remembered this night. The room stayed silent. Not a single sound moved through the hall. No coughs, no shifting chairs, no whispers. It felt like time itself had slowed down, as if the world was holding its breath. Even the soft glow of the lights seemed to pause, waiting for what was about to happen. Her fingers rested on the keys. She could feel the cool surface beneath them, smooth, familiar, steady. The piano felt the same as it always had, even though the room was different, bigger, louder in feeling, quieter in sound. She could feel the weight of the moment in her hands, but not in a heavy way. More like a quiet responsibility to herself, to the music, to the people who were listening. Then, slowly, she played the first note. It was soft. So soft that some people almost wondered if they had imagined it. The sound floated into the air gently, like it didn't want to disturb anyone. It didn't push itself forward. It didn't ask to be noticed. It simply existed. A few people leaned forward without realizing they had done it. Something about the note felt careful, honest, real. It wasn't trying to be impressive. It was just true. Then came the second note, and the third. The melody began to form, slowly and calmly, like a thought turning into words. She didn't rush. She didn't try to show off. She didn't add anything extra. Each note felt like it had a reason to be there, like it belonged exactly where it was. The piano answered her touch with a warm, full sound. The hall carried the music easily, letting it travel without effort. The sound filled the space without becoming heavy, without overwhelming anyone. It wrapped around the listeners gently, like a soft blanket. The people listening started to forget why they had doubted her. They forgot how she looked when she walked in. They forgot the quiet questions they had asked themselves. Is she really the one? The thought no longer mattered. Now they were only listening. Her hands moved across the keys with quiet confidence. Not the loud kind that demands attention. The quiet kind that comes from knowing exactly what you are doing. Every movement felt natural, like her hands and the piano had known each other for a long time. The music didn't feel rushed. It didn't feel careful either. It felt true. As the melody grew, something changed in the room. The air felt different, heavier with emotion, lighter with judgment. Faces that once looked unsure now looked focused. Some people stopped blinking, afraid to miss even a single moment. Others relaxed into their seats, letting the sound move through them instead of around them. The doubt didn't disappear all at once. It faded slowly, like fog lifting in the morning. Little by little. Each note pushed it farther away. She wasn't playing to impress anyone. She wasn't thinking about the crowd at all. Her eyes stayed on the keys, but her mind was somewhere else. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere safe. Somewhere familiar. She remembered the small room where she used to practice. The old keyboard, the uneven keys that didn't always respond the same way, the chair that wasn't comfortable, the dim light that barely reached the corners of the room. The long hours when the only audience was the cat or the clock on the wall, she remembered. The nights when her fingers felt tired and her hands felt slow. The nights when she wondered if she should stop. If it was worth it? If anyone would ever hear what she felt when she played. Those memories didn't hurt anymore. They gave her strength. The music grew stronger, but never loud. It had shape and feeling. Some parts felt hopeful, like light breaking through. Some felt heavy, like holding something that had been carried for too long. Some felt calm, like finally letting go. It sounded like a story, not a perfect one, a real one. A few people in the audience felt something tighten in their chest. They didn't know why. The music reminded them of moments they hadn't thought about in a long time. Moments they had never spoken out loud. Feelings they didn't have words for. Others felt their breathing slow down. Their shoulders relaxed. Their thoughts became quieter. They weren't thinking about what came before or what would come after. They were just there listening. The piano seemed to listen to. It responded to her touch gently and clearly. Each note rang out, then faded naturally, leaving space for the next one. She didn't fill every moment with sound. She allowed silence to exist. She used the silence just as carefully as the music. She knew when to pause. She knew when to continue. She knew when to let the sound fade and speak on its own. Some people later said it felt like the hall itself was leaning in closer. Like the walls wanted to hear more. Like the lights felt warmer, softer, but at that moment, no one spoke. No one moved. She reached the middle of the piece, where the music grew deeper. The notes felt heavier, carrying emotion that had nowhere else to go. Her hands pressed the keys with purpose, but never force. She wasn't trying to be perfect. She was being honest. And the audience could feel it. Someone in the back slowly wiped their eyes, surprised by tears they hadn't expected. Someone else smiled softly, feeling something they couldn't explain. Others sat completely still, afraid to break the moment. The music didn't belong to the room anymore. It belonged to everyone listening. She felt it too. She felt calm, not nervous, not afraid. She felt steady for the first time in a long while. She wasn't asking herself questions. She wasn't wondering if she was good enough. She wasn't waiting for approval or signs or answers. She was simply playing. Her mind floated with the notes. Each one carried a memory, a hope, a piece of herself she had hidden for too long. Each note spoke of her patience, of her persistence, of the nights and mornings she had given to this music when no one else was watching. The final part of the piece began to approach, and the music slowly softened. Not because it was ending, but because it wanted to say something quietly. Her fingers moved slower now, more Careful. More gentle. Each note felt like a thought chosen with care, like words spoken at the end of a long conversation when only the most important things are left to say. The sound became gentle. Warm. Close. She felt every vibration in her fingertips, every echo of the notes around her, every tiny movement of the petals beneath her feet. The last note came and faded into the air. She didn't lift her hands right away. She let the sound disappear fully. She let the silence settle. Then there was silence, not the uncomfortable kind. Not the confused kind, the kind that feels full, the kind that means something important just happened for a moment. No one knew what to do. Then, somewhere in the hall, someone began to clap. One pair of hands. Then another. Then another. The applause grew slowly and honestly. Not rushed. Not forced. It filled the hall the same way the music had. People stood up. Not because they felt they had to, because they wanted to. They couldn't stop themselves. She opened her eyes. She looked up for the first time. She saw faces that no longer questioned her, faces that no longer looked unsure. She saw respect. She saw understanding. She saw quiet admiration. Some faces had tears. Some had small smiles. Some had mouths open slightly in surprise and wonder. She stood up from the bench. She didn't bow deeply. She didn't smile widely. She simply nodded. A small, calm gesture. The same way she had walked in. Quiet. Steady. True. As the applause continued, she felt something inside her settle. Not pride. Not relief. Peace. She hadn't proven anything. She had shared something, and that was enough. Later, people would talk about that night. They would remember how they almost missed something special because they judged too quickly. They would remember the quiet performer who didn't look important at first, but she didn't stay to hear their words. She walked away from the piano, the same way she had walked toward it, calm, grounded, carrying her music inside her. The hall slowly filled with noise again. Conversations returned. Chairs moved. Life went on, but something had changed. Not just in the room. In her, she stepped outside into the cool air and took a deep breath. The night felt calm. The world felt lighter. Not because everything was perfect, but because she knew something. Now, she knew her quiet effort mattered. She knew her voice didn't need to be loud to be heard. She knew she belonged, and sometimes greatness doesn't arrive with noise or attention. Sometimes it walks in quietly. It sits down. And it lets the truth speak for itself. She walked home slowly, her shoes tapping softly against the pavement. Her mind replayed the music in fragments, small notes, small pauses, small breaths she had taken. Each one reminded her of the hours she had spent alone, learning, failing, rising again. And for the first time, she felt that all of it, every struggle, every doubt, every quiet night had led exactly to this. She smiled softly. Not because anyone saw, not because she needed anyone to, but because she finally understood this was her moment. Her story, told not with words but with something even deeper, and it was enough.